Okay, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, going over, man, my collar's fucked up. I had a Halloween thing in the office today. Decided to be a little lazy, just throw on a jersey over the polo, which is also just so happens to be a Bengals polo that actually I got from Matthew Reynolds. So shout out Matthew Reynolds for his thrifting abilities and his thrift finds, finding me a jersey. Or finding me a jersey. Jesus Christ, finding me a fucking Bengals polo. Jesus. Anyways, so reason for the outfit today, but also in celebration of obviously a fucking crazy fucking Bengals dub. I mean, I think we all just collectively kind of had a fucking sigh of relief just watching us not only beat a team solidly finally by more than one score. I think this is the first time we won by more than one score other than when we beat, I think it was either the Cardinals or the Seahawks, where we won by more than one score. But not just that, but against a team that 3 weeks ago people were saying was the best team in the league by far. And even now, they're pretty damn good. Which, by the way, I also want to ask you guys, did you see Chase Young is getting traded to the 49ers right now for a fucking third-round pick? So I think we need to have an old conversation with fucking Lou Anarumo or fucking Zach Taylor, whoever, because how the fuck did we not get in on that? Because from what I'm hearing in the fucking grapevine, Sam Hubbard might be looking to leave here soon. So a guy like fucking, we might be trading away Sam Hubbard. So a guy like Chase Young would be a fucking ridiculous pick. And even if we didn't get rid of Sam Hubbard, I mean, you're talking Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, Chase Young on the edge. You just rotate those fuckers through. They're always fresh. Just fucking ridiculously terrifying defensive line. So I don't know, crazy fucking pickup. That was a crazy revelation, hearing that for me today. But regardless, I mean, big stuff all around. Regardless, fucking who day, big stuff. So I'm just going to hop right in to covering my predictions for week 8, which was last week, and then go into my predictions for next week, which is week 9. To start off with, we have myself versus Dalton, which I have a lot of comments I want to make on this. First of all, I put DeAndre Hopkins on my fucking bench, scored like 36 points, which would have just been like, it's one of those moments. I going into the week, I was between Rashee Rice, T. Higgins, or DeAndre Hopkins, just knowing super positively that whoever I picked to put in my lineup, one of the two guys I put on my bench in that spot was going to go the fuck off. I didn't think it was going to be to that extent, but, here we are. DeAndre Hopkins, probably going to try and throw him in the lineup for next week, because who the fuck knew Will Levis? Shout out to all my UK guys and UK fans out there. Who the fuck knew Will Levis was just going to pop the fuck off like that? Kind of fucking annoyed about that situation too, though, because Mike Vrabel kind of was just like pushing it off like, yeah, whatever. I mean, he tried to put Malik Willis in. Malik Willis fucking fumbled on basically one of his only 2 plays in the game. So, I mean, Will Levis, legit guy. I know a lot of Titans fans are super excited to see that a guy like Will Levis is stepping up and playing the way that he is, and they kind of are starting to feel collectively like, fuck, we got a quarterback now. So I think a lot of us UK fans are going to be kind of low-key rooting for the Titans a little bit. Unless they're playing the Bengals, obviously, but I'm low key excited for the Titans, unless it comes to AFC playoff placements and stuff like that. Then fuck them. But regardless, happy for the Titans that hopefully they found their guy. But I ended up pulling this off. I mean, it came down to the fucking wire, which my other big thing I wanted to mention, fucking Devontae Adams. I thought fucking for sure that Devontae Adams was going to go through that whole entire game without a single fucking reception. And he didn't end up getting his only, reception for 12 yards until, pretty late, I think, in, the third quarter or fourth quarter or something like that. So, I mean, let me just say, I know anybody that watched this game will collectively say, I think, and this is a little bit of a bold statement, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo is literally the worst quarterback in the whole entire NFL. I was really trying to rack my brain earlier, who's worse than Jimmy Garoppolo? And, I mean, nobody that is at least a starting. I mean, you can make the argument for some backup guys that are kind of stepping into the place of their injured quarterback, like a Brian Hoyer, guys like that. But, as far as starting quarterbacks in the NFL, literally nobody's worse than Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is absolute fucking garbage. I can't even fathom how fucking terrible he was. I mean, he threw up 4 big bomb passes to Devontae Adams where Devontae Adams was wide the fuck open, and he wasn't even in the fucking same zip code with his throw. I mean, there's plenty of times where Devontae Adams was wide open and Jimmy Garoppolo just could not get him the ball. I mean, a fucking blind fucking preschooler could get Devontae Adams the football. He is that wide open on almost every single play, especially in that game. I mean, they almost just started not guarding him because they're like, Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to fucking give him the ball anyway, so who gives a shit? So, ridiculous situation. You know, free my homie Devontae Adams, get him the fuck out of there, or get another quarterback in there, because Jimmy Garoppolo is just not it. He has to be out of there. If he's starting next week, I'm showing up at the fucking Raiders' house and I am murdering him. The head coach, that is. Anyways, I beat Dalton last week. Came down to the fucking wire, 94-91. Which going through, obviously everybody can see. If me or Dalton would have played anybody else, if I would have played anybody else this week, I would have got fucking smacked. Because I think the next lowest scores were Bess and Colin with 104 and 107 respectively. And then other than that, everybody's like 120 and above, other than, I think Blake was at 113. Everyone else is like 130s and above shit. So I would have got my ass destroyed by anybody else this week, unless I would have started fucking DeAndre Hopkins. I would have been fine. But, of course, my bitch ass didn't. But it didn't matter. So, long story short, I was correct on my first prediction, which is that I would beat Dalton. But it was a very sad victory. It's not one that you go back to the locker room and you're happy about. It's one where you kind of go back and you're like, lucky I got away with that one. But, you know, doesn't leave the best taste in your mouth afterwards. Next one is a very, very big one as well. It was a Connor Walsh versus a Hunter Stevens. And I put my money on Connor Walsh because Connor Walsh has not lost all year. And I do want to make a statement that if Connor Walsh would have played literally anybody else in the league, similar to my experience, but in the exact reverse, if Connor Walsh would have played anybody else in the league this week, he would have won. The only person he wouldn't have beat is Hunter, and that's who he happened to play this week. So very sad for my guy Connor that he ended up pulling off that L. I do want to make a comment and say Hunter reached out to me early on, like Sunday afternoon, and was like, dude, I think I may end up beating Connor Walsh. And I pulled up his fantasy matchup. This motherfucker didn't have a tight end starting. He just was sitting him on his bench and was like, I think I'm going to win still. And it would have been tight, but I will say, I told him to pick up Sam Parham, or whoever the fuck the Chargers backup tight end is, because Gerald Everett's out. And I was like, dude, just throw that fucking guy in your lineup. And if he wouldn't have thrown him in his lineup and would have just chilled with Gerald Everett, Walsh would have ended up winning that week. So I'm sorry, Connor Walsh, because I may have inadvertently been the reason that you ended up losing that week, or this last week. But it did happen. I mean, Hunter, no matter what, never just leave a guy out of a lineup. I don't care who it is. I don't care who you have to put in to replace him. Never just leave an empty spot in your lineup. It just doesn't make any sense. Just plug somebody in, buddy. So I was wrong on my second prediction, which makes me 1 for 2. 1 for 2. Hunter pulling out the dub. Congratulations, Hunter. Really fucking big stuff, dude. Proud of you. And shout out Hunter. I know he hit a like $680 parlay yesterday. Big stuff. I will still say fuck Sam Laporta till the day I die. That dude kicks babies. Fuck him. And fuck everyone that put those 3 TD score fucking bets on Sam Laporta. That shit didn't hit. And he didn't get the first touchdown. So, fuck you guys. Next, we have a Connor Daniels versus a Blake Benson, which I put my money on Blake Benson here just because Connor's been kind of going through a drought. And, I mean, Connor heard what I was saying, and he was like, motherfucker, talking shit. But I'm going to go the fuck off and have my highest scoring week of the year. So, Connor actually ended up coming out and beating Blake's ass with, I think, the 3rd highest score in the league. And that's fourth highest score in the league under Hunter, Walsh, and then Adam. So shout out Connor for bringing his squad together. I mean, you must have put together a beautiful speech, especially to CD Lamb, who came out and got you 41 points. That's fucking ridiculous stat line, especially for a pretty, I mean, not talking shit, but like CD Lamb is kind of mid, but they absolutely decimated the Rams. So good on them. Good on CD Lamb. 41 points is a fucking lot of points for a standard PPR league. So shout out Connor for pulling himself out the mud and coming out with a really big 139.5 point week. So that makes me 1 for 3. Next, we're going on to an Adam versus a Ryan, which in this matchup, I did pick Adam, but I will say it ended up being closer than I thought it would be. Ryan did kind of come out the gate swinging, made it a pretty close matchup, 133 to 142. Still a really respectable week, Ryan, just because, I mean, like we've kind of said too, you would have beat over 50% of the people in the league last week if you would have played anybody else. Unfortunately, you played the third highest scorer. And third highest score being the fact that he was only 0.3 points scoring behind Walsh. So you could reasonably say the second highest score. It's pretty much tied with Walsh, damn near. So really good week, Ryan. I was definitely surprised that your squad, after the last couple of rough weeks you had, came out and still put up a valiant effort. But regardless, shout out to Adam. AJ Brown is an absolute dog. I love that guy. He's like a son to me. So love that guy on your team there. So that makes me 2 for 4. Final 2 matchups here. We got a Dawson Hogan versus a Colin Higas. In this matchup, I did select Colin to win. So I was incorrect, which makes me, what does that make me? 2 for 5. 2 for 5. So trending in the wrong direction there. But shout out Dawson. I know that similar to a lot of us, Dawson was having a rough couple weeks where he wasn't really scoring too great. But I think he had some surprising guys come out and have some really good weeks. Gus Edwards with 30 points. Kind of fucking nutty. I mean, the guy came out swinging. I mean, he hasn't had a week, to my knowledge. I mean, I'm not pulling up his stats, so to my recollection, I don't remember him having another week this year with those kind of numbers. So big on him. I know he had some good weeks last year that were resembling these numbers, but definitely a super fucking big week. Ravens for us in the AFC North is a little bit scary right now. I mean, I'm never going to say that they're better than the Bengals because, fuck the Ravens, but still, I mean, Ravens are putting together some solid dubs right now, and they have a pretty fucking easy schedule throughout the rest of the year, if I'm being honest with you. I think they play the Seahawks next week, so that's another fucking dub because the Seahawks suck dick and balls. But shout out to Colin for having the faith to start Joe Burrow. I'm sure there was those thoughts in the back of your head just kind of talking to you, telling you like, Brock Purdy may have a big game, a bounce-back game. He just got off a concussion. They're not going to lose 3 in a row. You probably had those little ghosts in the back of your head kind of talking to you, but you were like, no, fuck it. Who Dey Nation, I'm going to start Joey B, and that was the right decision. Unfortunately, your other guys in your squad just didn't pick it up enough to get you the dub there. But regardless, shout out Dawson Jean. Shout out my boy Dawson Jean, Gus Edwards, George Kittle, Kirk Cousins, rest in peace. I know you had 2 Vikings players off, Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins on the squad, and they're both out. So super tough. Maybe I'll shoot a trade your way. Everybody else, think about Dawson. If you're looking to do some trades, you might have to trade away George Kittle maybe to somebody is what my guess is. Because tight ends are always really, really good trade pieces, especially if you have a top 5 guy. On to our last matchup of the week. We got a Matt Reynolds versus a Jacob Bessiker. In this matchup, I did select Matt Reynolds, which brings me back to a 3 for 6 record, so right back to the 50% number. I'm going to get that 100%. It's going to happen at some point. I mean, a fucking blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. So, it's going to happen. Maybe not because of skill, but just out of sheer luck, it's going to end up happening. But regardless, I mean, big week from the kid, Matthew Reynolds here. Alvin Kamara is actually looking pretty fucking decent. They showed the stats that Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey over their careers have had almost identical numbers, which actually fucking blew my mind. And at first my mind was like, well, Christian McCaffrey's been hurt a lot in the last couple years, so maybe that makes sense. But honestly, so is fucking Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara's hurt all the time too. So shout out Alvin Kamara. I knew he was good, but I didn't think his numbers would be touching CMC's, because CMC has some crazy fucking stat lines. So he had a big week. Jamar Chase had a big week. Fucking thank you God. Gabe Davis. I mean, Gabe Davis continues to surprise me. I mean, there's a lot of times where he's interchangeably the number one receiver over Stephon Diggs. And that's kind of the week that he had this last week. I don't remember what Stephon Diggs scored this week. I know somebody's going to be like, Stephon Diggs still played really fucking good. But he had 16 points. I'm seeing that now, which is respectable. But Gabe Davis has had a lot of games this year where he's outscored Stephon. So unfortunately, Best couldn't put it together. Javonte Williams finally kind of getting rolling there. And I know they were interchanging him out with us a lot with Samaje Perine, but they absolutely fucking dog walked. Broncos dog walked the Chiefs. I mean, who the fuck could have guessed that? I mean, holy fucking shit. That shit had my mind blown, dude. And I mean, I was starting Rashee Rice, so that was a little bit tough to see that. But still, I mean, the Chiefs didn't score a fucking touchdown, dude. Didn't score a touchdown. Kicked 3 field goals, and those were all in the first half. 0 points in the second half. 0. And I think Patrick Mahomes had 3 turnovers himself personally, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, and then they also, other skilled players, I think they had another 2 fumbles on top of that. So they were just turning the ball over, couldn't get fucking anything going. I mean, absolutely crazy. I really want to know what the odds were if you would have bet Chiefs no touchdowns for that game, because I'm sure it would have been ridiculous. Like if you would have parlayed that with the Broncos winning, I mean, I'm sure that would have been fucking nuts. And if you would have tried to move the spread line to say, the Broncos were like going to be plus fucking 14 or more, whatever they fucking won by, the odds there were probably absolutely outrageous for the Broncos to win by 2 or more touchdowns. I mean, I would not have been the guy that would have put money on that, but that shit would have paid off nuts, even for a couple dollars. So regardless, valiant effort, Jacob Bessiker. With a lot of guys that you wouldn't expect to be at the top of your scores, but they came and showed a lot of grit. I think you can get those guys back together, have a good conversation with them in the locker room and really bring them together. So, 3 for 6 overall in my predictions for last week. Hoping to get back above the 0.5 number for next week on my predictions. So we'll start with that right now. Next, we got two bottom barrel boys, me and Connor Daniels, are first up. So, motherfucking surprise, I'm picking myself. I know Connor had a monster week last week with the 130-something score, but I got to stay strong on my roots. I got to learn from what I messed up on last week as far as who to start. If I start the right guys, I feel like I can beat a lot of people. I just have happened to not start a lot of the right people sometimes, which is, I know, the story of a lot of people's lives. There's so many times where everybody loses a matchup where they're like, fuck, dude, if I would have started this one guy and this other guy, this guy would have got me 2 more points than the other guy did. This guy went off, he would have got 15 more points, and then I would have matched up, and you're doing all the fucking fantasy football math in your head. So, I mean, it's not a sob story, but I feel like it's been affecting me more this year than in past years. So 2 guys that are 3 and 5. I'm picking myself. I'm sorry, Connor J, but that's just the way she goes sometimes. Week 9. Next, we're going to a matchup between Connor Walsh versus Blake Benson, which I will say, looks like Connor has a lot of buys going into this week. He has 3 guys on bye: Evan Ingram, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Christian McCaffrey. So a lot of guys going on by. You get some decent guys to replace him. Jacoby Myers. That's really it. Now that I'm looking at it, Jacoby Myers. And then maybe you could move some guys around, throw somebody in your flex. I know you got a Tyler Lockett too. Not actually a ton out there right now. So with that, I'm going to go for a dark horse pick. I know that I said I've been picking Connor Walsh no matter what, but Blake Benson, I think Blake's going to put one together this week. That's just a weird gut feeling. I feel like Connor Walsh is going to have a similar story to the 49ers, where he's putting it all together, but then he's going to go on a couple game losing streak. I think that's just the script. I think that's the script that's been written up by the fantasy gods. Not that I think he's still going to playoffs. I mean, no matter what, I think his percentage of going to playoffs is like 99%. So, I mean, you could probably damn near lose out and still go to the playoffs. So, you're still going to playoffs, buddy, but I think you're going to lose in week 9, unfortunately. Next, we have Dalton Bates and Adam Burbrink. And this is where I'm starting to see it may come into play that I'm kind of doing the update a little bit earlier than I normally do. So there's a lot of guys without starting lineups completely set. So I don't really have the projections to really base much off of, which projections aren't everything. So, we're just going with it. So Adam Burbrink here and a Dalton Bates. I'm going to have to go Adam. And I mean, I feel like that's for obvious reasons. Obviously, I played Dalton last week, lowest score in the league, unfortunately, last week, and Adams has been kind of on a heater. So I'm going to have to pick Adam in this situation for fairly obvious reasons. I will say, in Dalton's defense, Adam also has 3 players on bye, but I do think he has some decent depth on his bench in order to replace a lot of those guys, maybe not at the running back position. Well, I guess you can move Bijan over to your RB1 with Isaiah Pacheco, throw some of those wide receivers, Nico Collins, Jordan Addison, in your starting lineup. But definitely a little bit worried. I can see now that the drafting strategies are really starting to come into play with a lot of guys having people on bye week. So we'll see how that plays off for a lot of these high-scoring teams in the league. This is definitely some of the bottom barrel guys' chances to really kind of fucking, lay it on them. You know what I mean? That was a fucking, lay it on with a dick. Pause. Anyways, next we have a Dawson Hogan versus a Ryan Chance. This is a tough one. Both guys had been going through a drought, and both guys last week stepped up to the plate and really did some damage. So I'm gonna have to say for this matchup that I think, I don't know. I think Ryan's due. I'm gonna say it. I think Ryan's due for a good win. And this is a really tough one. I'm going to claim this one to be matchup of the week. I think this is a matchup everyone should keep their eyes on this week. I think